Good day and welcome to the Papyrus Global TV, your authoritative source for parliamentary developments from across Africa. I am Christiana Babayo, and tonight we focus on how parliaments on the continent are shaping democratic reforms, citizen rights and governance reforms, with Nigeria's legislature at the forefront of a transformative electoral debate. Here are tonight's top headlines. Nigeria's parliament reverses calls on electoral reform, backing real-time result transmission after public outcry. Pan-African Parliament advances a draft model law to enforce human rights rulings across member states. Benin's new elected parliament begins work after pivotal legislative elections. SADC Parliamentary Forum adopts resolutions on artificial intelligence to modernize legislative processes. Let's begin with the most pressing story of the day. In Abuja, Nigeria's National Assembly has been at the center of intense national debate after weeks of public pressure over amendments to the Electoral Act. Lawmakers in the Senate were forced to reverse part of their earlier position and now support mandatory real-time electronic transmission of election results, bowing to widespread protests from civil society, labor unions, and legal organizations. Last week, the Senate had omitted the phrase "real-time" from the clause requiring election results to be electronically transmitted from polling units, a move critics said weakened transparency and risked future disputes in the 2027 general elections. The decision sparked demonstrations at the National Assembly complex, with protesters chanting "Our votes must count" and demanding accountability. Prominent political figures joined the movement, warning that without clear provisions for immediate result uploads, Nigeria's democratic process could be compromised. In response, Senate President Godswill Akpabio convened an emergency plenary session where senators agreed to establish a 12-member conference committee to reconcile differences between the Senate and the House of Representatives' version of the bill before it returns for final approval and presidential assent. The ongoing tussle underscores the broader challenge Nigerian lawmakers face as they attempt to balance technological reform with practical concerns about infrastructure, digital inclusion, and national stability, all while civil society insists that electronic result transmission is a non-negotiable pillar of electoral credibility. Critics from socio-political groups argue that delay or dilution of these reforms could erode public trust and weaken democratic foundations just months ahead of critical elections where President Bola Tinubu is expected to seek re-election. Turning to the Continental Legislative Cooperation, the Pan-African Parliament (PAP) has taken an ambitious step towards strengthening human rights enforcement across member states. Parliamentarians at the PAP's Committee on Justice and Human Rights approved the first reading of a draft model law designed to ensure national implementation of decisions from supranational human rights institutions. The draft model law aims to create mechanisms that require governments to adopt and domesticate rulings from bodies like the African Court on Human and People's Rights and the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. Among its key provisions are mandatory registration of African human rights decisions in domestic courts, national implementation coordination mechanisms for reparations and compliance, parliamentary oversight to ensure governments report on the status of implementation. Parliamentarians lauded the initiative as a potential game changer, with some describing it as the missing link between our continental commitments and the lived reality of African citizens. The draft law will undergo regional consultations across Africa before second reading and adoption, an important step towards harmonizing legislative action with continental human rights standards. In West Africa, Benin's National Assembly has officially begun work following the 2026 parliamentary elections held on 11 January, where all 109 seats were contested. Preliminary results showed a victory for parties aligned with President Patrice Talon, with his Progressive Union Renewal Party and its allied Republican bloc securing dominance in the legislature. The renewed mandate positions the Assembly to pursue an ambitious legislative agenda, including economic reform, social policy updates, and regional cooperation. Analysts note that the strong performance by pro-government lawmakers will provide political stability but also raises expectations for effective governance and accountability. The Assembly's early agenda is expected to focus on budget review, institutional strengthening, and the legislative framework to support local economic growth, as well as enhancing democratic participation in one of West Africa's long-standing multi-party democracies. Regional parliamentary collaboration in South Africa also made headlines as the SADC Parliamentary Forum concluded its 57th Assembly in Victoria Falls, Zimbabwe, adopting a set of resolutions on the use of artificial intelligence in legislative framework. The forum, bringing together representatives from all 15 SADC member states' parliaments, recognized the transformative potential of AI to enhance parliamentary processes, from drafting laws to improving public access to information. Key resolutions included calls for comprehensive infrastructure and skills audits to guide AI strategy, investment in AI literacy and ethical governance understanding for lawmakers, digital capacity building to ensure parliaments remain responsive and equitable. These innovations are part of a growing trend across African legislatures to harness technology not only for government efficiency, but to widen democratic participation and oversight capability in an increasingly digital era. Elsewhere on the continent, parliamentary institutions are navigating shifts in governance, representation, and legislative focus. For example, although not tied to a specific session today, observers note that electoral credibility remains a core theme across Africa as countries refine their democratic norms, reshaping how voters participate and how legislators respond to citizen demands. The issues currently being debated in Nigeria are emblematic of wider continental concerns, from technological integration in elections to ensuring legislative frameworks align with contemporary democratic expectations. In addition, the ongoing evolution of parliamentary dynamics reflect broader socio-political realities, with young populations, civil society pressure, and regional bodies all pushing for reforms that enhance accountability and responsiveness. As parliaments in Africa confront a range of governance challenges, from domestic electoral law reforms in Nigeria to continental human rights enforcement mechanisms to regional legislative cooperation, 2026 continues to look like a pivotal year for democratic development on the continent. In the coming weeks, key developments to watch include the Harmonized Electoral Act Amendment Bill in Nigeria, follow-up consultations on the Pan-African Parliament's model law, and legislative assessments in newly elected bodies like Benin's National Assembly. That's tonight's edition of the Papyrus Global TV Africa Parliament News, bringing you the most impactful legislative developments affecting governance and democracy across the continent. From Nigeria's electoral reform debates to continental efforts to strengthen human rights enforcement, parliaments are playing a central role in shaping Africa's democratic future. Stay with us for continuing coverage of parliamentary events, and from all of us here, thank you for watching and good night.